You're listening to Biz-Souls, the business podcast with an edge, hosted by me, Rona Lewis, and Jeffrey Hansler. Tune in for perspectives and discoveries about the changing world of business. It's time to connect to the heart, soul, and humor of how business gets done. Hello, all, and you're making noise. And welcome to Biz-Souls. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler, and we get to the heart and soul of business and the people that make it happen. And we're wrapping up today. We've done 3 before this, and now we're doing number 4 to call it good for the day.
Yeah, I'm pooped. And all of these, it's not a series per se. It's a group of subjects that are related.
Have threads.
Yes.
Threads.
And
just pull on one of the threads. See what happens.
That's right.
Makes the
Speaking
whole
of which,
bigger.
hey, you know.
So what are we talking about right now?
Today, we're talking about consensus leadership and how it's not always such a great thing.
Well, and I have to admit, I was not a fan of teams. Teams were starting to get popular in the 90s, and everybody's like, oh, we'll have team decision-making. And it's like, no, I'd rather have just a person that really knows what's going on. And then when we started on projects, OD projects, Jim said, we have to work with teams because we just don't have the personnel. And it also fits the coaching model, which is the idea that you're not solving their problems, you're getting them to solve their own problems. And so you do the teams to do that. Okay. So in that case, getting people involved and helping them transition, I think, is a good element of consensus leadership.
Yes, I can see that. And some of the issues is that you can get into decision-making paralysis.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're afraid to make a decision, or one person can dissent in the group.
Right.
And then you have no consensus.
It's like a jury.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, it's... And,
he's guilty. No, he's not.
Well, and I think if we talked about it in the other, one of the other podcasts, I can't remember which one, about managing, that companies are getting flatter. And with that, it seems to be they're trying to become more democratic, which is not always the best way to be if you're pushing something forward. If there's too many cooks, it could take forever.
Correct.
And if someone has an idea, other people may not want to do it because, well, everyone else thinks it's the other way, so I'm going to go with them.
Correct. And you're the one who found the article on this. And basically it said the damage consensus leadership is doing to innovation.
Yeah, right.
And part of that is you water down the idea. Even if you do get a decision, the idea is watered down a lot of times.
Well, and go ahead, finish your thought.
People, because it's kind of like the average. You've got the low risk people, the high risk people, and they're just not, they settle in the middle to mediocre.
Right, exactly. And you get that mediocrity, and there's no boldness. There's a fear of coming in with an idea that may be absolutely crazy.
Absolutely.
And if you have a crazy idea, fantastic. You can take it apart and then see. It's like fashion. When you see Fashion Week and you see buttons that are as big as a watermelon because it's art. The real clothes aren't going to be that artsy. They are going to have a lot of elements of the clothing, and it has to be wearable.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the idea may be super wacky, and that's the divergent thinking. And then the convergent thinking is, how can it work in real life?
Right. And I'm going to take this from runway to roadway eventually. I just want to come back to the runway idea. As somebody who doesn't really understand that high fashion, some of the stuff they have on the runway is just stupid. I'm sorry. They've got...
It's fun.
What was the one I saw recently with the guy? They use the bottoms. They cut off bottom of jeans and stuff, and they use them for the top. Uh-huh. So you had this big collar with the button-down fly or a zipper fly.
Was that on one of the contests that I made you watch?
I don't. Maybe it was. Yeah. It could have been. Anyway.
It showed creativity, I thought. Anyway.
Well, and you just look at you're not going to wear that, or that big balloon pants. Remember those?
No, we know those. Yeah.
So it's except you're watching that, and I understand, the creativity part. Except you're watching that, and you're going, "Jiminy Christmas! What were these people drinking, or smoking, or eating, or imbibing?"
And at that same point, to that same point, you could say, okay, maybe we won't do pants bottoms, but we'll do some sort of removable, something that can be used as sleeves if you're wearing a vest, or, I was getting excited. There are ways of bringing it back down to earth.
Right. And as I said, runway to roadway. Is that what you said? I didn't get that runway
first.
to roadway.
Okay, now I'm with you.
So in terms of roadway, I'm talking about the public.
I get it.
And our governance. So the one place you would hope we would have consensus kind of leadership, and consensus being they would actually listen to the people, would be in our government. And I've got to tell you, over the last couple of decades, government's making its own decisions. I mean, it's coming out now. There's about where all the money's been going, and we're in debt, and the money's going all kinds of different places, and there's no checks and balance, and it seems to be just lining somebody's pocket as a commission for the money we're giving away for somewhere, because there's always a middleman. And you would hope that with the public that they would have some consensus on what the public wants, except it's difficult to do that.
Well, and to your point, I'm not saying I agree with everything that goes on in government. The fact is, not all people deserve a vote after a certain level. There is something to be said for being an expert or being voted in, or if you're getting hired to do the job, I don't always have to ask people for, I don't want to say the word below, but people who have nothing to do with what I'm doing for an opinion.
Right. I understand that.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with consensus leadership is not only do you not come to a decision, not only do you sometimes come up with a mediocre decision, you also fall into the habit of groupthink. And
that's the worst.
And then groupthink, if it runs wild, it just goes off into the ridiculous. I'm all about the environment and what we can do to help the environment.
Yeah.
These big wind turbines are not really, it doesn't appear to be paying off.
Correct.
It's creating more issues. And lithium batteries, everything from the way they're mined to
basically,
how they're put together.
We haven't figured out how to fix things yet.
Right, and the consensus is also against, groupthink is against nuclear, and nuclear seems to be one of the most efficient, effective things, especially fourth generation nuclear, which we're at now. So getting back to companies on this stuff, why did you think we got into consensus leadership? Was it hip?
I think part
inclusive?
of it, that's what I think. And I think, here's the thing, I think when people get into this mindset, they're trying to please all the stakeholders. And you can't. Someone's going to get pissed off.
Right.
And you can't worry about that. And I think we have become a society of worrying about making everybody happy. And it's not going to work.
And I think it was a more personal level.
And apologizing.
Well, right. Well, and
Stop apologizing.
Right. So for me, first of all, I think one of the driving forces was CEOs were CYA, covering their own back, and
as opposed to that's CYO, the Catholic Youth Organization.
Oh, right. And they were, by consensus, then they could say, well, it wasn't my idea, it was your idea. So it was just another ploy. It was kind of like, this is a ploy somebody attempted to avoid taking responsibility for being in their position. They wanted to keep the position. They didn't want the risks that went with it. And I think this is a ploy to avoid that. And I think it caught on. Other people decided to do it. The problem is that's not what we want out of leadership. And I think the pendulum swung back the other way. CEOs were so stoic, and I know Elon may not be your favorite person. I love Elon because he doesn't care about.
I don't care for Nazis.
He doesn't care about really. Oh my God! Wow.
Go ahead.
Wow. Okay.
I just had to throw that in there.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm hoping it's tongue in cheek.
Yes, it is.
He look, when he went through Twitter, he just said, I'm going to do what I think is the right decision on this. Now, how he handled it and what he did and the cost and the price and everything else, the fact that he wasn't being protective, he didn't give this big long spiel. It wasn't a PR piece. It wasn't a marketing piece. It wasn't double speak or spin or anything else. It was like, this is what I'm doing. This is the way I'm going to do it. And I think right now that's what we're looking for in
to a
organizations.
certain extent. I think there has to be a positive result in mind and not a total autocracy either. And this
And
is
you
strictly
did have
business.
a positive result.
Lately,
For business. Oh no, it's quite apparent. One, the value of Twitter is the data. One of the things of the data. Two, it was a platform for free speech. So those are two objectives that were important. And I believe that Twitter has all kinds of possibilities.
well,
for what
it's
you can
X
do.
now.
Well, yeah, it's X now. It's just like Meta and Facebook.
Yeah.
Anyway, so getting back to consensus leadership, deliberately, how do you balance it in your mind? Because there is a time for it and a place.
I think you have to be very conscious of what you're trying to accomplish, who knows about what you're trying to accomplish and can help in the process, and work within those parameters, not asking permission from those people around you who you just feel bad that they're not in the know, or feel the need to, what's the term? FOMO, fear of missing out. Too bad, let them miss out. It has nothing to do with them. They're people they're leaders who are afraid to miss meetings. Well, if it has nothing to do with it, if I'm a leader and I miss at something important in the accounting division, I'm not going to understand it anyway. It's not my wheelhouse. So why would I, just because I'm not in the meeting doesn't mean I'm not relevant, and people have to get out of their own way.
I have a little more jaded view. So I see the best purpose for consensus leadership is as a training tool. So you've got the wise old sage, the Chinese kung fu master, who he and students are in this big fight, and the master turns to the students, what do you think we should do? So he knows what should be done. He is helping to transfer leadership to them. And I think under those cases...
that's coaching.
It's coaching, and that's where I think consensus leadership is really good. It's a great way to coach in real-life situations and, I believe, get a better result. My problem is, and you and I work with it.
Okay, I don't see the parallel.
The parallel is, so consensus leadership is about a group making a decision.
Right.
So if you have a master who really knows, they help the group make a better decision. So really, it's not true consensus leadership. It's a bit,
right.
It is the master trying to
educate. It's a teachable moment.
It's a teachable moment. So that's where I think consensus leadership is best used. And I also think that's where it should be kept. Because you and I both work with creativity and innovation. And we both know that often the best ideas come from people that are not part of the system.
Right.
They're outside the system. They're the new eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed Catmull talks about this all the time.
That's right.
It's the new eyes on seeing a movie from a different perspective, and how is it going to impact
absolutely.
them?
And there are definitely times when I'm with my Play and Ponder mastermind group where we realize that we think too much alike. We all have very similar education background, even though we come out in different ways. And that's why we go out into the world and talk to other people and put things on Facebook and on LinkedIn. It's like, how do you see this? And we get great answers. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think of it that way.
And great point, excellent point. And for me, just to finalize this point on it. So if you've got a group of people that think they're in the know, and an outsider comes in, the group will almost always, groupthink, shut the person from the outside down.
Yeah.
And that is less likely to happen if you've got somebody who's confident, knows what they're doing, knows they should try something different. And so that's the problem I have with consensus leadership. And the reason this comes up so often in the work we see is because board of directors have a tendency to, it's about consensus leadership. There's a lot of discussion. There is a chairman.
There's a lot of fear.
Yeah, and there are votes. Same thing with the jury. Juries can be swung based on, the discussions that go on.
Yeah, if there's one strong voice.
Correct.
It makes a big difference.
So anyway, thumbs up, thumbs down,
I would say
Siskel,
overall.
Ebert and Siskel or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of consensus leadership. I think it should be a little more diverse?
I think it should be consensus discussion, wide open with a lot of active listening, and then I think that the people that that are ultimately responsible for it make the decision. If that decision means they turn it over to the group, then they turn it over to the group, and they still are responsible for the decision. The buck stops here. Consensus leadership, the way I've seen it done so many often, where everybody, they'll vote, they'll go for it, and then they leave the meeting and they're complaining about the answer.
Right.
It's the quickest way to the bottom.
And I think it's a difference in the definition of consensus. Where in the stage is the consensus?
Exactly.
Good
point.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
And that's where we have it. So,
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a consensus on this?
Absolutely not. I refuse to agree with you on anything about this.
You're not the
this
stakeholder
moment.
I'm looking for.
Exactly.
We're not the droid you're looking for.
Exactly. Well done. Well done.
All right. If you like this conversation, please do like and subscribe. If there's any comments, throw them down there. And that's it for us this week. I'm Rona Lewis.
I'm Jeffrey Hansler.
And this has been Biz-Souls.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Biz-Souls Podcast with your hosts, Rona Lewis and Jeffrey Hansler. Did you have fun? Subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Talk to you next week.